Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to thank you for attending today's session. I appreciate your attendance. We're going to go through and talk about management and what it means to be a successful healthcare manager. Today's agenda, we're going to talk about introductions. We're going to go through our objective and what we want to cover today. Overview of management and what it means. The 5 functions of management. And the 3 management styles. So when you walk away from today, you'll have a better understanding of these different items. And we will save time at the end for any additional questions that you may have. So quick introductions. My name is Kate Kyer. I have been a medical management office for the Offices of Doctors Fingers in Hand for the last few years. I've been a manager for the last 6 years of 30 to approximately 30 associates, and direct offshore folks as well, about 40 associates. And I've been in some form of leadership role for the last 18 years. So I'm hoping to be able to share, I'm going to share my expectations and what I've learned in my experience with you today. So our objective. We're going to do introduction of how to be an effective healthcare manager. So again, when you walk away from today, you'll have an idea of what that looks like, an introduction. Understanding the 5 management functions and how they apply, and the 3 management styles and how important they are, and effective weaknesses and strengths with those styles. So what is management? Management is the act of not only engaging your individual or physical resources, it is also to help establish those goals for those resources and effectively managing those goals. Implementation of certain key functions are important, and the criteria that goes with those functions. One of the most important duties, though, of a manager is to effectively organize resources, but not just the physical ones, the human capital. It's to also efficiently allocate the financial, technical, or natural resources that are part of your organization. And so it's a multifaceted role. We are also going to cover in more depth throughout this presentation the 5 management functions that are following. Here is just a pictorial of these 5 functions. So they are planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and controlling. These functions aren't one and done. They are constantly being reviewed and going back and refining as you go through your tasks each day. So let's go into some more detail. Planning. So what is the act of planning? It is determining the next steps and actions that need to occur, whether it's today, tomorrow, next week, 5 years from now. What do you want to accomplish with your team? So the example of what we want to talk about, and we'll go over more in tomorrow's session, is reducing the excessive wait times in the office. So planning function is going to help us determine what actions we need to put in place that will help address those issues. We will create plans around them. We'll understand how to implement and recommend those plans. We'll talk about target dates and budget and who is staffing and training needs that need to happen, and what we're going to do to implement. That's what encompasses planning. Another function is the organizing, so implementing a pattern of relationships. So workers schedule to make sure you're optimally using all the resources required to run your office. You need to make sure that you have an organization set up of how you're going to interact with each other. So for the example that we used earlier regarding reducing the excessive wait times, we're going to want to understand what that team structure looks like. Work schedules for folks, do those need to change? Do we have to extend hours? What are we going to do to support the decrease in wait times for our customers? The next one we talk about is staffing. So it's very much what it sounds like. Staffing is looking at jobs that we have out there, recruitment, hiring of folks, making sure that we have the necessary skills and appropriate jobs to help us in our success, providing and facilitating ongoing channels of communication, associate feedback, training is all critical to ensure that staffing is appropriate. Leading and directing. So these are very different functions. Leading and directing we'll get it more into when we start talking about the management styles. But what you need to do is determine what needs to be accomplished in any of the situation. How are we going to meet the goals? What are the goals? It's also the act of motivating people to achieve those outcomes and tasks, making sure that they truly understand what success looks like. And to include providing those goals and metrics and mentoring the associates as well. You may have senior staff or other staff that can help mentor associates that are coming on new. So again, an example of this would be, what does success look like? If we're trying to determine the reduction in wait times, wouldn't you want to know what's acceptable for your customers? I mean, reduction of 2 minutes, 3 minutes, what are they expecting? So what does success look like and how do you achieve that? Controlling and monitoring. So it's also really crucial to make sure that you're checking in, that you're taking those outcomes and the expectations and comparing them back to your plan. Are you doing well against your financial forecast? Are you making the proper adjustments when you need to make sure that the goals are achieved? Do you try something out and realize it's not as effective and so you need to go back and consider something different? But you need to make sure you're monitoring the success of them throughout the duration of your task so that you don't just wait to the end and realize that you're not successful. Let's go into some management styles. So the 3 management styles that we want to talk about today: directing, discussing, and delegating. So delegating is empowerment, allowing your associates to do the task and to carry it out and to implement what needs to for a certain task. Directing is what to do. You're going to give specific feedback to associates on what they need to do, and you make the decisions. And then discussing is asking questions and listening. So talking through a particular barrier, making sure that the associate has an opportunity to vet through ideas, give them ideas that they need to consider, talk about previous success stories. Those will be things that part of discussing, but ultimately the manager will still make those decisions. So let's go into this a little more detail. So management style. So again, the appropriate management style helps employees learn, helps them grow, helps them become independent, it helps give them the confidence as well. As effective managers, you're going to need to vary the styles that you use depending on your associates and where they are in their experience and what tasks that they're doing. You're going to take into consideration their skill set, their knowledge, and the complexity of that task. So each style has 4 different components to it. There's a communication piece, a coaching piece, decision-making, whom, and then recognition. How did it go? What worked well? How do you continue to grow from there? So as we discussed a little bit earlier, the directing style, it promotes that learning of that associate through giving them specific directions, giving them, helping them learn through listening to you about what your expectations are. This style tells the employees when to do something, when it needs to be done, and how to actually do it. And it's typically used for newer associates or associates that are very new to a certain task when they need the direction and just need to focus on the outcome. Discussing style. So this promotes learning through interaction. So vetting through ideas, talking and encouraging, critical thinking, having them think outside the box. Questions that may be about the problem and opportunity, how to resolve those things. The manager will typically facilitate and guide this discussion and help the associate come to some conclusions, but will still ultimately make the final decision. But it starts to move that associate through and becoming more confident in their ability. This is particularly helpful when you're addressing a new situation or initiative that's never happened before, and you're helping set expectations. Delegation style. So delegation style is used when you have someone that is more advanced in their experience, that you're comfortable and trust that you can give them that empowerment to make their decisions. This style, the manager will assign tasks and let them know when they need to have it completed by, but that person will work independently. They will either individually or in a group. They may be a lead over a set of other associates to make sure that the tasks are happening properly. And this, again, it tends to be most effective when somebody's got full experience or a skill set considered when making those decisions. The challenge with this can be that you need to be able to entrust that the associate is making the proper decisions. So you're still going to want to have status check-ins and updates regarding the progress versus waiting to the end of the project to see if it was successful. It's just as a check-in, but you do allow them to be independent. Strengths and weaknesses of each style. So we've talked quite a bit about directing, what it means. The manager defines the goal, it's to demonstrate a task. It helps define the limitations and boundaries of that associate. Some weaknesses that can be with this, though, if it's inappropriately used, so say you're directing an associate that has great experience, they've been proven over and over again, they can get frustrating, they can feel that they're micromanaging them, that you all of a sudden don't trust them for some reason. So it's important to make sure that you're using this effectively. So those new associates, a new task that somebody may not really feel comfortable being able to set on their own. And then the other weakness is it's increased time commitment. It can be, depending on the task and the duration of the project, can be quite a commitment on the manager's point to ensure that the associate is being successful at this. So discussing, again, this is where they're asking questions, you're giving advice, they're giving ideas as well, explains the what and the how about what you're doing. It also reflects on their past successes and builds on them. And you help them remove obstacles to the goal that they're trying to accomplish. And you ultimately will set the requirements for them and what that looks like. So again, weaknesses, you really need to make sure that you're using this appropriately. It does require frequent check-ins and encouragement to increase it, which increases the time. It's also used inappropriate. It can stall progress. So it can make employees become anxious or frustrated and become disengaged if they're not ready for this type of management style. So if there's somebody that should be more in the directing end of things, they may be confused and not be able to really add input to the discussion. Delegating. So this one is exactly like we've talked about. Employee participates, they take responsibility for setting goals and action plans and making sure the discussion happens. They encourage and challenge themselves and share knowledge, skill sets. It's still important that they check in again with you, but it gives them the empowerment and the independence. There has to be a level of trust there from the manager and a proven success that this associate can handle this type of delegating task. Again, if it's used inappropriately, they may lose confidence. They may become very concerned or frustrated and feel unsupported if you're giving them a delegating task when they're really not ready for that. Goals may be missed. And so if the associate, again, is not aware or hasn't had practice they may not realize that there's a certain requirement that needs to happen. And of course, it also can create increased confusion between the players. So usually the manager is somebody that is giving them this feedback. If it's a peer that's giving them direction, it can cause some confusion between the associate and the management team and who's responsible for what. So it's important to make sure that there's a clear line for that associate, but that they do have the opportunity to empower. Questions that you have for me. If you have no questions for today, I certainly have my contact information here. It's been a pleasure to talk with you today. I hope that to see you all in the session tomorrow where we'll go into more detail regarding how to create a plan around those excessive wait times. Have a great day.